Protests throughout the nation, including here in El Paso, are being held in the middle of a pandemic, posing a health threat to protesters and police alike. El Paso's health expert, Dr. Xtra, is recommending protesters get tested for COVID-19. Joining us now to continue the conversation surrounding protests in the borderland is the president of El Paso Municipal Police Officers Association, Sergeant Mike Short, retired Major General Dana J.H. Petard, and protester Ashley Trewick. I'll start with you, Sergeant Short. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Are there any concerns for police officers that they may contract COVID-19?
We have plenty of concerns. In addition to what the average citizen has to deal with, we had to come to work anyway. The police are always needed. And now, of course, with the troubling events that are occurring in the country right now at the unfortunate situation with Mr. Floyd, we have people that on our department that were lacking personal protective equipment. We were lacking all sorts of things, which the entire world was. So our union stepped in to provide additional supplies for our people. But this is a silent killer and it's indiscriminate. And we still had to come to work and do the job, and we're committed to do that.
I'll turn it to you, Ashley. Are there any concerns among protesters about COVID-19?
I think there's a lot of concern among protesters with COVID-19, as there is with anybody as long as COVID-19's been around. The issue is that a lot of our protesters are young and they've been having to go to work, and they're essential workers, so they really haven't been able to self-isolate and do the things that they're supposed to do, because they also don't have access to the proper PPE because there is that nationwide shortage as well. So it's kind of like a lot of protesters feel, I mean, I know I don't want to say for everybody, but myself, I feel that I've already been putting myself at risk for so long that standing up for something that I believe in as deeply as I believe in this is worth the risk of catching it, because I was already risking catching it working every day.
Ashley, is the word getting around that everyone should be tested after the protests?
Yes, as well as between myself and a lot of the other kind of protesters that have been going to multiple protests and kind of speaking with each other. We try to tell everybody to always wear masks and that there is free testing available, as well as the text messages that have been being sent out by the El Paso City. We've been getting those alerts, and those also let us know where we can get tested as well.
General, you've been quoted as saying that you do believe that there is systemic racism in the United States. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's racism in the police, in law enforcement. There's racism in the U.S. military. There's racism in corporate America. It's all throughout America. It's something that we have now dealt with as a nation, really for 401 years, since 1619, when the first slaves were brought over from Africa to Virginia. But it's what we can do now. Again, we have an historic opportunity now to try to end systemic racism. Like I said, it's in the U.S. military, but the U.S. military, just like law enforcement, really reflects the American society in which they serve. No better, no worse.
Well, you're watching ABC-7 Extra. Still ahead, protesters are asking for police reform. I'll ask my guests what needs to happen to bring both sides to the table to talk about change. We'll be right back.
Planning your Social Security retirement is something we all think about. It is important you are well informed on all of your options. Your Medicare coverage is imperative for your health. Let Ramos Health Plans guide you through it all. We have licensed agents ready to assist you. Are you new to Medicare, or do you have questions about your coverage? We can do enrollments electronically or over the phone. When you have Medicare, you have options. Let one of our virtual agents help you with your enrollment today. Don't let social distancing stop you from your benefits. Call Ramos Health Plans at 626-6137.
When you're ready to make home happen, we'll be there for you. Imagine the possibilities.
Shop today at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso. At home, in the showroom, at your convenience. And save thousands in interest with 0% APR for 72 months on new Tucsons and Santa Fe's. With no payments for 90 days and 3 years included maintenance. New Tucsons now $3,000 off MSRP. And new Santa Fe's now $4,000 off MSRP. Plus new Elantras are now $189 a month. That's $189. Shop today at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso.
My Oscar is such a good boy.
The sun doesn't take a break from coronavirus, and neither does the ABC-7 Storm Track weather team.
When the borderland heats up, our forecasts help you plan your day and keep your family safe.
On air or online.
The KVIA Weather and Traffic app is ready whenever you are.
With up-to-date traffic information and your latest forecast.
First alerts to let you know when we're going from hot to sizzling.
ABC-7 Storm Track weather, accurate, reliable, and here when you need us most.
ABC-7 Storm Track weather, keeping your family safe.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Joining us now is President of the El Paso Municipal Police Officers Association, Sergeant Mike Short, retired Major General Dana J.H. Petard, and protester Ashley Trawick. I'll start with you, Sergeant Short. What exactly needs to happen for both sides to come to the table, and do we need standardized policing throughout the nation?
I don't believe in standardized policing, although most departments function pretty much the same. I believe that's the community standard for the country to decide in their local areas. In terms of what we should do, in my opinion, is, look, there's obviously concerns amongst plenty of factions in our community. Black, brown, LGBTQ, all of those. There are concerns, obviously, or we wouldn't be here. But what we need to do is have those discussions during a time of calm. Because when something happens, if we've built a relationship with each other and we've become familiar with each other, we can hold an individual responsible and not hold the entire police service responsible. No police officer in El Paso put their knee on anybody's neck in Minneapolis. We're sorry that it happened. George Floyd's life mattered. We understand. But emotions are very good motivators. They're very poor decision makers. Time to talk is during calm. We're willing to do that. You can call my office, 544-4924. We'll be glad to talk. We can have discussions about what the police do, why we do this, why our policy is that. You can go to your regional command, have meetings with your commanders. We're willing to listen.
Yeah. Sergeant, do you believe that police reform is needed in El Paso?
I do not believe police reform is needed in El Paso. I've been a police officer for 31 years, currently hold the rank of sergeant. I work with dedicated men and women every day who leave their homes and they're willing to suffer the how because they understand the why of policing in our community. We're a part of this community. We're not apart from this community. And we want to police appropriately our community, but there needs to be an understanding of why we do what we do and how our tactics are and what our thoughts are. We go home to children every day, wives, finances, bills, all of that stuff. But we need to talk, so let's talk.
Do you believe that reform is needed throughout the U.S., police reform is needed throughout the U.S.? Okay, we'll go to you, Ashley. Ashley, do you believe, you obviously believe, because this is what you've been marching for police reform. What form do you think police reform should take?
That is a difficult question because I don't have all of the answers when it comes to this. I know that there's a problem and I know that there's something wrong and I know that there are politicians and that there are people in place that are, it's their job to fix these things. So I do know that tear gassing peaceful protesters, refusing to kneel with peaceful protesters in respect for George Floyd, that does kind of make it feel like EPPD is separate from us. There are a lot of issues that I have with the narrative surrounding how the protests went because I was there, I was on the front lines, and I did witness everything that happened from my point of view, and I think that force was completely and ridiculously overdone. There were 17-year-olds that were shot with pepper bullets or the rubber bullets, whatever it is that you guys use. I'm not sure exactly of the terminology, but I know that there were a lot of kids in that crowd and that if there were issues, why were we tear gassed and shot at after we got on the grass like we were asked to do, and well after any violence was done by any protesters, which I'll say I believe was initiated by the police, because I was shoved by the police and I didn't throw anything. So, but that's how I feel. I think that there is reform that needs to be made, but I think that there are people whose job it is to, make those decisions. I can go to my city hall meetings like I plan to tomorrow, and I can say, what I need to say, but I don't have the power other than to vote.
Ashley, we have heard from police officers who believe that perhaps you all protesters are not complying when asked to move, and at some instances, like what happened Sunday night, tear gas canisters and rocks were being thrown at police officers. At what point in time do you tell fellow protesters, look, if we're being asked to move, we need to move, rather than have this clash happening?
I'm glad you asked me that, because we did do that. I made a human chain, as it was shown on KTSM, with other protesters to guide the crowd onto the grass where we were asked to guide them. We did what we were asked to do, even though it is our First Amendment right that we can protest in the street. We did move as we were asked. Really, we weren't really asked. We were shoved and pushed. Nobody asked us to move. We did as we were told, and we got everybody onto the grass, and that is when tear gas was deployed. That is when rubber bullets were shot out. We moved like we were asked to move. We did comply.
However, we do know that canisters were thrown at police officers as well as rocks. Are you all policing yourselves and making sure that no one does something like this?
Yes, I would say absolutely. Anytime that anybody was seen being violent or aggressive with police, they were addressed by another protester and removed from the situation. That was basically my entire job, and along with other protesters, was keeping potential agitators away from police, to keep them from tear gassing us, to not give them a reason. That was something that was said multiple times. Do not give them a reason.
And now, moving forward, is this a conversation that groups are having in case you all see someone who's either infiltrated or trying to agitate police, to try to pull them back from that particular situation?
Yes, that's a conversation that I had multiple times with multiple people on Tuesday, because I did show up before a lot of people. I got there pretty early, and so I was trying to have conversations with a lot of the protesters in regards to what to do if things were to get violent, or if you saw people misbehaving or trying to cause mayhem, when all we wanted to do was be peaceful and have our words listened to.
General, what do you think needs to happen to try to bring both sides together, so that we don't have the clashes that we've been having right now? Because obviously people do get hurt when police and protesters clash. What do you believe needs to happen to try to prevent that?
Oh, certainly. There's got to be dialogue. And of all places, El Paso is the place to do that, because, again, it has such a really good tradition of the police being so well connected to the community. But, this whole issue is so much bigger than the police. It's about how we as a society value the lives of people of color. And there must be accountability, certainly, with the police, but it is the entire society. And that is to make sure that everybody understands that Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter to everyone, but people in color in general, and how we value life. So that is something that must be done nationwide. And it's an opportunity to end systemic racism if we can.
Yeah, General, I'll ask you the same question I asked Sergeant Mike Shore. Do you believe that we need standardized policing across the nation, and do we need reform, at least on a national level?
We need accountability overall, and standardized policing. Okay, maybe standardized rules in some ways, and accountability, but again, the larger issue is how we value people. And do we have police that are in fact profiling? Do we have police who in fact are looking at someone of color and saying, well, they're less value to me, and their lives matter less? You rarely see that in El Paso, of all places. There's a good record in El Paso of that. But throughout the nation, we must have accountability with our law enforcement.
Those same questions that you asked, do you believe that that's going on, that there is systemic racism going on within police forces elsewhere, and maybe we're not listening? Then is that what you're looking at right now?
Oh, yes, absolutely, because the police are merely a reflection of society. So if we see a problem with the police, we need to look at ourselves as a nation. And it's, again, building this relationship between people of color. I mean, when's the last time you had, if you're a white American, when's the last time you had someone of color at your dinner table? That's just an example of that. But it's, again, increasing the relationship between people. There's a number of things we can do also for people of color in many ways. But people of color like myself, you can't do it alone without the majority of people, and that's Caucasian Americans, finally saying, let's end the systemic racism. And we value all people in society. And the strength of our country is, in fact, its diversity and inclusion.
General, I also have to ask you, as you well know, Colin Powell has come out, as well as General Mathis. They all came out and they disagreed with President Trump using either National Guard or the military to go into cities to quell the situation. Your thoughts on that, sir?
Oh, sure. Again, the way it's supposed to work is you have law enforcement, and if it's beyond the capability of law enforcement as far as the situation, then the state governor can call up the National Guard, which has been done. If it's beyond what the National Guard can do, then in fact the president can lawfully, with permission from state governors or request from state governors, use active duty troops. And this situation hasn't warranted that. It was a knee-jerk reaction by the president. And so many former general officers like myself and others are saying that we got to watch that. That's a slippery slope. The president can in fact do that. The last time that was done was in 1992 following the Rodney King trial and verdict in Los Angeles. And prior to that, I think it was 1968, maybe in Detroit, other places where the rioting got so violent that was needed. But that should be done in rare instances.
Ashley, we're basically running out of time, but I do want to ask you, are protesters willing to meet with police so you can find common ground?
I definitely believe so, as long as we're going to be listened to. Like I said, there is a city hall meeting tomorrow that I'll be attending. However, those can be a little bit tricky because as a citizen, you only get 3 minutes to speak. However, I think if there can be some sort of meeting, I definitely think it's possible. It's just we need to be assured that we're going to be safe and that we're going to be listened to, and that it's not just, a show.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking time on this Sunday evening to talk to us about a very important issue. Now, ABC-7 has reached out to El Paso Police Chief Greg Allen to talk about local protests, police response, and what led to the use of tear gas. We've not heard back from him, but El Paso's top cop is expected to present the mayor and city council with an update and a breakdown of protests during this week's city council meeting. You can count on ABC-7 Xtra and ABC-7 to bring you those updates when they happen on air and online at